It's now my great pleasure to introduce Mayor Peter Donovan. Just a couple of words. He's a lifelong resident of Mount Vernon, homeowner since, what was it, 2006?
2002, 2001.
Yeah.
Long time.
The thing about Mayor Donovan is you know him because he's been so involved in the community for a long time and just been a tremendous part of the community. So it just such a pleasure to have you in your position and looking forward to your remarks. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Andy. It's great to be here. So the state of the city. It's pretty good. Thank you for being here today. Have a wonderful afternoon. They talked me out of that edition of my speech. State of the city addresses are supposed to be, about mayors sharing their vast accomplishments over their long tenure. I've been here literally less than 150 days. So when we talk about accomplishments, we're going to be a little bit flexible and creative with that term, I hope. But as I was thinking about this and what to share with you today about these first 150 days, there was one particular event, and really one of the first, I'll say, great events occurring in my administration. And it happened just a couple of weeks ago. I've literally had people tell me that the way that it brought the community together, it was not just awe-inspiring. Some said they shed tears, which is really humbling, actually. I've asked around and no one can recall such an impressive event in the first 150 days of a mayor in the history of Mount Vernon. And I hope you all enjoyed Mount Vernon's Aurora Borealis display last week. Yeah. I look forward to great things to come as well. This one took a lot of planning and permitting was a little bit rough, but we got there. Team effort. So thank you. You're welcome, Mount Vernon. 143 days. Prior to taking office in January, and many of you know this because we knew each other before this, I worked in the mayor's office, the Mayor Boudreau's office, for about 8 years. And I really see that as an advantage that I had as a candidate, was that experience before taking office. It allowed me and the city director team to really not lose any time, to catch me and them up to speed. We were able to hit the ground running and take on some tasks that maybe an uninitiated mayor would have had a little bit more time, needed a little more time to work up to. We tackled some housing codes, some infrastructure project planning, and made some major personnel moves in this short amount of time, all while beginning to undertake the city's 20-year comprehensive plan update, completing a major overhaul of the Fire Station 2, and ensuring that the $56 million public infrastructure, the Mount Vernon Library Commons project, gets funded and gets completed on time this summer. Yes. And most of you know I had very little to do with many of those things because they were in place before I got to office. But I often get asked why I ran for this position. And my answer is that I love this city. I genuinely do. I want this to be a place where, if they choose to, my own children can be here to buy a home, to safely raise their families, to open up and see their businesses thrive. I love to solve problems. I've been working with Mount Vernon residents, again, for over 8 years, and businesses to directly help them fix whatever it is that's broken in their world. And just in the end, to make our city a better place in the process. So I genuinely love showing people that government can work with them and it can work for them. And that's why in addition to all these action items that we're tackling in my first year, I do intend to continue the listening tour that I began in my campaign, really wanting to hear what it is that is important to you important to our residents so that we can work on those things rather than coming in with my own agenda and just trying to see the things that I want done complete. But overall, I see the role of mayor as a position where I've been entrusted as a steward. You've heard public servant. I like that. I like what that implies. I also like public steward. A mayor is an entrusted steward of the city's resources, our finances definitely, but also our safety, our opportunities, and I'm a steward of the talents and the abilities of our 270 employees that I oversee. A steward doesn't have a claim to these things, just a responsibility, right? Just a duty to each of our residents and our business owners to care for these things and to optimize every opportunity to strengthen and grow this incredible place that we call home. So the format for today is going to be, if you've been to Mayor's Coffee in the last few months with me, it's going to be a very similar format, except that I'm going to give a quick overview of how your local government works, a look at a few of the infrastructure projects that we have underway. I'm going to introduce my staff to you, and then you will be programming the remainder of our time together. And that's what we do at Mayor's Coffee. You ask the questions, I'll answer the questions. I can't stand hearing politicians talk about all the things they want to talk about. I want to know what you are wondering about. Maybe you have a great idea for the city. Maybe you have an issue that keeps coming up that you wish would get fixed. Those types of questions, I'm going to ask those at the end. And so please be thinking of those. And as you're thinking of those, please also know my mother is in the front row right now. And if this goes sideways, she will be talking to you. No, I'm kidding. Mom and Dad are here, but they don't have to be softball questions. We want to answer whatever it is that you got. So I like starting out my talks by framing the roles of what our government is, what we do, and it's kind of junior high civics class level, right? In the federal government, we know that there's the executive, legislative, and judicial branch. A lot of people don't realize that applies to local government as well in the city. The mayor is the executive branch, and as you see, responsible for the operations, the day-to-day oversight, personnel, all of those things. The legislative branch is your city council, and they are doing things like budgeting. They make laws. They write and pass city codes. They are responsible for taxing, bonding, capital planning. A lot of times people think they get it mixed up. On TV, a mayor can do anything. And I found out on January 1st that's not. This is really disappointing. Turns out there's checks and balances. But these roles and these branches are there intentionally to keep us all in our lane, right? And for checks and balances that ensure that everyone functions within their role. And I can tell you that they do. I can tell you that I have the privilege of working with the best city council, certainly in Skagit County, probably the state. I don't think that's hyperbole. And I don't think Councilmember Beaton, who's here, thinks so either. Hey, oh, yes. Big round of applause from her, for her. Are there other council members who are here that I didn't see? Councilmember Beaton, thank you for being here. But these are 7 council members who are public elected to work and do work collaboratively. They work thoughtfully and they work responsibly to make sound decisions for the residents and businesses in our city. And I can tell you that to a person, they just care about the city of Mount Vernon and want what's best for it. I meet with all of them on a fairly regular basis. And together we've already accomplished some pretty cool stuff in a short amount of time. So let's go over a few of those things. Housing code. There's a housing crisis, newsflash, affordable housing crisis in Western Washington on the West Coast, certainly in Skagit County, definitely in Mount Vernon as well. There are some laws that are coming down to cities that we will be encouraged, no forced, to incorporate into our codes that allow for higher density in our cities. Why do we need higher density in our cities? Well, it's been projected that The city of Mount Vernon, for instance, is going to grow from a city of about 35,000 to a city of maybe 47,000 in 15 to 20 years. How do we accommodate for that kind of growth? Because if it doesn't happen in the cities, if we don't plan for it in the cities, then what has happened before the Growth Management Act in the early 90s was it just kind of sprawls out and can take up farmland, can take up areas, rural areas where we don't want to see that kind of development. So we're planning for how to densify our cities, and we're being told how this is going to look in some ways. And in some ways, that's a really good thing for our city and a healthy way for us to grow. And so one of the things that we looked at was our accessory dwelling unit code. And this seems maybe like an obscure thing, but building a mother-in-law apartment in your yard is one way that we can densify our properties and increase our housing inventory and provide more affordable housing options. It is not the solution to the housing crisis, but it's a tool that we can use to help get us there. And in talking with our city attorney and with city council, we recognize that it is a tool that we could actually adopt earlier than we're required, and it would help some families out in our city the day after it passed. So it was something that we could do quickly and early to realize some impact in our housing crisis and in housing availability. We're not done. We're still looking at codes that we can change early that will help produce more housing units, even as we update our comprehensive plan, our 20-year plan for the city that we update every 8 years through this year and next. Infrastructure improvements. Riverside Drive, you may have heard because we've been going out and engaging with business owners along Riverside Drive. There's a plan, a 2-phase plan to fix a few things on Riverside Drive that we don't like. It's bumpy. Everyone likes a resurfaced road. We're going to resurface Riverside Drive, but we're also going to put in new curb ramps, new sidewalks, ADA ramps. We're going to take the telephone poles and all the ugly lines, the wires that are hanging over the stores and the commercial area, and we're going to put that underground. And it's just going to give a nicer, cleaner look to Riverside Drive. And that's going to go from Fur all the way north past College Way and all the way to the river in 2 different phases. So next year, late next year and the following year, you'll see the first phase of that from College Way to the river getting done. And so we're working closely with those business owners to get feedback and hear what it is that they want for that. We see that as not just improving the community, but also as an economic enhancement and investment. The West Side Bridge. This has been a problem. This rust bucket has been sitting up there unpainted for over 30 years, I think was the last time it got painted. This is, in my assessment, an iconic bridge, could be anyway. Right now, that icon just says, I'm super rusty and I'm an eyesore. We've been talking with WashDOT. This is a state highway. A lot of people don't know that. This is Highway 536. And Washington State Department of Transportation owns and manages this. And they have been talking about maybe painting it for a while. And as we've talked with them in recent months, last year especially, it became clearer and clearer that they were going to paint it. And we're like, yes, because we have been asking for a long time. And so hearing that, of course, I made that a campaign promise to paint the bridge. So I really put myself out there. Good news, they're going to likely about this time next year get started on painting this. It's not just paint, not just cosmetic. We also have a problem with people who want to actually cross the bridge that don't have a car. If you want to ride your bike across, push a stroller across, walk across, you sometimes take your life into your own hands crossing this bridge. So improvements for pedestrian bike lanes and separating those lanes from the rest of traffic so you can feel a little more comfortable about getting to the west side. Someday, connecting our trails and more trails on the west side of our city that connect to our river walk and our trail system. So that connectivity hopefully is coming as well. And then this is icing on the cake and not promised, but I think it would be cool to have colored LED lights on the bridge that we can light up for different reasons at different times of the year. We'll see how that goes. I mentioned we're renovating some fire stations. Fire Station 3 is on the left. That was completed last fall. Fire Station 2 is in progress. It should be completed this summer. And this is about just building for the future. Both of these fire stations were built with the concerns of the day in mind. And we outgrew them quickly because they weren't really built for future growth. So we're looking at future growth now. What are our needs going to be in the next 20, 30 years? What are we going to need in terms of fire response service? I can tell you that when I started at the city in 2016, our fire department had 4,988 emergency calls. So they went out on almost 5,000 calls. Last year, they went out on 8,330. So a 67% increase in calls over 8 years. We're growing. We need the space. I don't know if you've seen Fire Station 1 downtown, but that's next. That thing looks almost as bad as the West Side Bridge. And internally, it's even worse. So plans for that are coming. We need to, again, plan for our needs in the city as we have unlimited density restrictions on buildings downtown. We need to be able to house a ladder truck downtown. Novel idea, right? Well, a ladder truck doesn't fit into Fire Station 1 right now. Things like that need to be fixed. Also talked about personnel decisions. A director team is the responsibility of the mayor to hire. We have 10 city departments and directors overseeing each one of those. And I'm going to see how long I can leave Stacy's picture up there before she turns completely red. Stacy Pratchner is our new development services director. Stacy was hired at the end of summer last year, and I wasn't mayor at the end of summer last year, but was given some latitude as I didn't have an opponent in the election to make some staffing decisions. And so I count Stacy as my first hired team member. And you may also know Steve Sexton, who, listen, both of you should scrub your social media and the internet because, no, put it back, Steve. Steve's running no. Put it back. Yep, that's on the internet. So I found it. What? It's a good picture. Steve, my position for the last 7-8 years was special projects manager in the mayor's office. And so, of course, when I took office on January 1, that position was vacant. Noticeably vacant, I will add, for 2 months as I kind of struggled to continue to do what I was doing and then my new duties. So had a very competitive process for this position, over 20 applicants, 6 outstanding applicants that we interviewed, 3 that would have knocked it out of the park. Only 1 had some experience that I was looking for in a mayor's office. Steve had a gig north of the river and had it for over 12 years, which is exactly, what's that? I know you are, I know. We'll all move past it though. Steve's super happy about it though, I can tell you that. But to have Steve's experience and just all of what he brings to the office, it's like day one, he knew what was going on, knew how to do what he was going to do. It was like zero training. So really grateful to have him and his experience and his wisdom in the office. And then most recently, Police Chief Dan Chrisman will start in Mount Vernon on June 11th. And that's a bittersweet one. It's sweet because he's awesome. He's perfect for the position. He's well known within the law enforcement community and well liked with our staff. And I think, again, gonna hit the ground running. He's gonna know what to do. He knows how to connect with the community and prioritizes that. Bitter, of course, because Chief Kamek has been with the city for 35 years and has held on with us while we searched for a new chief graciously. So I'm going to have all my directors stand, but I'm going to start with Chief Kamek, ask him to stand, and let's give him a round of applause for his dedication and service. You may have heard that policing is difficult, especially in recent years. It is. Police staffing is a challenge for a lot of agencies. Chief Kamek has 46 police officer positions that are funded, and we've worked really hard. He has led the charge in trying to fill those positions. We have 35 officers right now who are actively working, and they're managing those 24,000 calls annually. Amongst the 35 of them. However, the good news is we have 3 in our hiring process. We have 5 who have been given offers and are somewhere in their training process, which leaves us with just 3 vacancies, which is a strong position to be in considering the policing environment. So well done to Chief, and thank you for all that you've done here. I wanted to also introduce the rest of the room. My directors most of the directors are here. And when I call your name, if you could stand up and wave. Director Chris Phillips is our Public Works Director. Chris, thanks for being here. Our City Attorney, Kevin Rogerson, is here. Our IT Director, Mary Thomas. Finance Director, Doug Valesky. Library Director, Isaac Huffman. Fire Chief, Brian Bryce. UMet Development Services Director, Stacy Pratchner. And you know Steve. Wait, but can we see your picture? No, we can't. Okay. And our HR Director, Aaron Cater, and Parks Director, Jennifer Berner, are doing trainings right now. They couldn't be here, but would have liked them in here. Get asked a lot. And by the way, this team is amazing. They are specialists in their field. They do all of the work of the city, and they work hard to try to make the mayor look good, which they've got their work cut out for them. So thank you all for being here today and participating. I get asked all the time about the Library Commons project. It's so central, so visible. This is, if you haven't been to Mount Vernon this year, on Kincaid, right across from the courthouse, this is a $56 million public facility. It is a library on the ground floor, parking garage, 3 levels of parking above that. It has a community center, it has a commercial kitchen, and it is set to be completed by July of this year. And we are hoping to have a ribbon cutting ceremony that we would invite you to come down on Saturday, August 10th to celebrate this with us. We're going to close down the streets and do it big. I just hope they wrap up the construction because we're booked. How was it paid for? How in the world? This is a mix of federal, state, and local money that has fully funded this project. And it's done that without a single tax rate increase to our public. So, yeah. And like the Northern Lights, I would like to take credit for that. But really, that is testament to some sincere dedication, hard work from former Mayor Boudreau, from Doug Valesky, our finance director. The city's staff doesn't have a huge grant writing department. Mayor Boudreau took on a lot of that grant writing and then chased those down to make sure that we were awarded those grants. And then all of a sudden this money's flowing in, but there's all these hoops you have to jump through. And Doug in finance has spent some long weekends jumping through those hoops and ensuring that this money comes into our community. And again, not a single tax rate increase is amazing. Director Chris Phillips at Public Works has overseen a lot of the project as well. So, and Mayor Boudreau still, she did so well that we hired her to come on January 1st and see this project through. And she's doing an outstanding job of making sure that gets done on time and on budget. Right, Doug? Absolutely. All right. Those are just a couple of the updates. It's your turn now. Again, not a big fan of folks just standing up talking and hearing themselves talk. I want to hear what questions you have. I want to know how much time I have, because that felt like a cane almost. Okay, we're good. So your questions, what is it that you've seen that you would love to see change? Something that you like, an idea that you have?
Hi, and thank you so much for your humor and humility. Um, Very excited to see the step forward on changing code for ADUs. Is the city willing to then take the step of changing the code so that instead of requiring 2 parking places for every ADU that's created, that it's down to 1 parking place so that I don't have to pave over my entire yard when I turn my garage into an ADU?
Great question. So anytime we have a change to code, there's 100 different things at least to consider. The impacts of changing that code. Parking is a big impact when you're talking about increasing density. What are you going to do with cars? Where are cars regulated to go? City Council has looked at that. They're taking a look at what are these impacts going to be. That's something you usually do through a long process of a comp plan update, and it would take a year and a half. They want to do that sooner so that we're not eliminating potential units that could be built because of restrictions that we're just not thinking of. There are a lot of barriers in building codes that a building code might sound great when you talk about it, but as I talked to a lot of builders in the last year and a half, I learned that as you get into some of these codes and get a little further down the road, you find out there's some barriers that we got to get by. So we're gonna look at our code, open it up in the next year and a half, and try to identify all of those spaces where and places where this is keeping projects from happening in the city of Mount Vernon, and parking impacts is a big one. So thank you for bringing that up. Yeah, other questions?
Hello. Yeah. So the housing issue as well. When it comes to adding more housing to the area, you guys are talking about allowing more ADUs, but are you guys planning on, adjusting the zoning codes to be able to allow for more density, or are you guys planning on building up? Just kind of what are all the other plans other than ADUs that allow us to have more housing without expanding outwards?
Yeah, what other codes will we be looking at for increasing housing inventory? And I think I mentioned earlier that ADU codes aren't the solution. They're a part of the solution. They're a tool that we can use, but it was just some low-hanging fruit that we could change right away, right? There will be some other codes that we can adopt early that will also do that. There will be some codes that have to go through this comprehensive plan process where we study how changes to a particular code, density, setbacks, all of the things that might restrict a project, how are those going, if we change them, going to impact everything else? Density in certain zones, residential, the potential for residential in our C2 zone, something that hasn't been available since 2006 in Mount Vernon, but is available in other cities, and in light of a housing crisis, might make a lot of sense in the city of Mount Vernon as well. Things that we got to consider as we do this, it will and can and will change the nature of a city when you make some of these changes. And so those of us who maybe invested in this city and bought a home here, a business here decades ago in a neighborhood that we were attracted to and wanted to invest in, when we start talking about changes to the way that neighborhood looks and feels, there are a lot of feelings that go along with that. And so there will be a lot of opportunity for public comment. There will be, but I will say with council and with staff, there will be a lot of effort to accommodate the need that we have for housing affordability and for housing inventory. So a lot of those things, density, setbacks, yes, all of that's going to be addressed and much of it will be changed. I see my job in all of that over the coming years is to prepare the public for some of those changes and how things might look. Yes, sir.
I was told this is being recorded. So, so I'll start over
What?
here. So for a lot of the folks in this room that own their own businesses and are business professionals, what are some steps or some programs that the city is taking to both attract new business to Mount Vernon, but also retain the existing businesses and business professionals in the community?
That's a great question. Economic development and vitality is crucial. It's the heartbeat of our city, and projects like the Mount Vernon Library Commons project that takes an area of business like our downtown. And when you look at our downtown, you might just be tuned into the last couple of years and think maybe things are happening haphazardly. They are not. There was a process that was put in place back in 2008, a downtown master revitalization plan. And in that plan, it was a very public process. The public was invited to weigh in. What do you want to see this business district to look like? And what do you want down in your downtown? There were a couple of obstacles that were identified, three main ones. The first was flooding. We got to keep the river out of the downtown. That's a good first step. We built the downtown flood protection system, the flood wall, the Riverwalk Plaza. It's not just a park; it's a flood wall. You've seen it. Fantastic idea to combine two uses: an amenity that draws people to downtown, and we can have celebrations on the riverfront. We can also hold water out of our downtown and allow those businesses to do away with some of their flood insurance expenses and also attract new businesses into downtown because of that. When you do that, when you build a flood protection system like that, in our case, you had to take away some parking. Parking is a huge problem downtown. When things are going downtown, it is tough to find a spot. And I don't know if you know this, but folks in Mount Vernon love to park only in front of the store that they're going to. We're not walkers. Which is a problem. Additionally, I think it was 2012 that discussions about the community telling the city that we need a new library. We're long overdue for a new library. So this idea of taking two uses, parking and a library, and putting those together in a single project made a lot of sense and checked a couple of boxes and helped propel us forward in this downtown master plan. Because now we've got 300 parking spaces right downtown within walking distance to everything. And believe me, it's walking distance. I checked. And so now the third step was waterfront development and attracting investment in our waterfront. And so the city owns parcels along the waterfront. There are some privately held parcels, but what a great addition to our downtown, we think, to have things like maybe a boutique hotel or condos or things down on the water. That will be a process as well. That will be a public process. It's called a sub-area plan. We'll take a look at our downtown specifically, our core, and ask the public, okay, it's been a few years. What do you want to see now? Are we still on the right track? What do we want to see down there in terms of investment? So recognizing that the city can play a role in catalyzing business investment has been key. And we look to partners like the Mount Vernon Downtown Association and the Mount Vernon Chamber of Commerce to help us with those things, to help us with those needs, identifying those and then seeing where we can participate.
So coincidentally,
Right on cue.
first of all, I do want to thank you for making my job so much easier. Everybody here with the city and the members of council who aren't here, all those projects you've just mentioned certainly do make the work at the Downtown Association a lot more productive. So thank you for that. The question that I have is really unrelated whatsoever to the downtown business community. Is there room for a bike lane on these Riverside Drive improvements to increase that kind of transportation in our community?
So the question was, is there room for a bike lane when we make road improvements? And the answer to that in general is oftentimes yes. Oftentimes we have enough space to work and to add a bike lane and make what is considered a complete street by traffic standards. There are instances, however, like Riverside Drive, where while anything is possible because money can get you anything, um, we are incredibly would be restricted by right-of-way acquisition to expand our street wide enough to add a bike lane down Riverside. And so, yes, we could do it. How much does the public value a bike lane? What's your price tag? Because 11 million, 12, I don't know what the cost is to move underground vaults, to move all of the things that would need to be moved, pushed back to acquire property and expand to put bike lanes on Riverside Drive. So that's not a no, but it's a no. Not on Riverside Drive. Here's what we are doing though. We have a transportation improvement plan. We actually plan for things like, what roads are we going to need as we grow? Where are we going to need bike lanes? We have that plotted out. If you're riding your bike, and I do this, I ride my bike a lot. If you ride your bike from Burlington on Riverside Drive, Burlington Boulevard over the bridge to Riverside Drive, and you don't like traffic, maybe your kids are with you or whatever. First of all, a family with kids, if we put a bike lane on Riverside Drive, that's sketchy anyway. I'm not taking my daughter on that road. We have planned alternate routes to the right, to the left. There are other ways that you can go to get from Burlington to downtown Mount Vernon. So we have complete streets along the way. Freeway Drive has a bike lane on it. We have Colshan Trail runs east-west. That's a wide bike lane. I was just on that trail with my daughter on our bikes last week. It's very nice, and we have lights on it and more lights coming for it. We've got a good plan. We're gradually expanding our bike options, but I personally, as much as I wish Riverside Drive had a bike lane, I don't see a way where we could do that. Council might disagree, and they might say, you know what, we're doing it anyway, but that's what I'm thinking. Sorry, Ellen. Oh, well, thanks a lot. All right. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, the Skagit County Meals on Wheels is currently operating out of the Burlington Senior Center, and they're looking at putting a wait list on their services due mostly to capacity at the kitchen that they're currently using. You mentioned the Library Commons is going to have a commercial kitchen space. Is that earmarked for private use, or is that something that would be opened up to nonprofit use?
It's a great question. So the Meals on Wheels program, actually, I just got a little more familiar with this a couple months ago. I got to ride along and deliver meals on a Friday afternoon, which was awesome. But when I was there, I learned that those meals are prepared in Burlington. They're distributed out to various locations, and then they are loaded into cars and delivered to folks who wouldn't be able to get out and get a meal. So awesome program. We have been talking with Skagit County Public Health about the role that the city can play in that. I'm sure there is some sort of partnership that we could work out. I would like to see, if we're not preparing meals in Mount Vernon, which might not be a possibility, is there a way to schedule distribution from the Library Commons commercial kitchen at some point? So yeah, we're actually talking about that.
All right, Peter, thank you so much. Eaglemont, that's all I'm going to say. June 6th, they're having some kind of a rally up at the clubhouse, but what is the city's position on the golf course?
So the city's position on the Eaglemont Golf Course, and my city attorney just completely froze up when you asked that. He'll be okay. You just let him sit for a little bit, and we'll get him some water. Here's why I have to be a little bit careful with that, because the golf course, if you don't know, Eaglemont Golf Course was purchased by someone who kind of let the golf course go. The clubhouse is in complete disarray. The courts took the property back from him, and it's now in the hands of those who financed that person, and they're trying to make a decision on what to do with the property. They sell it. Meanwhile, the homeowners association is very interested in this property returning to be a golf course, right? That's what they bought their home for. because it was on a golf course, more than likely. And so what's going to happen? How much can the city do? I can tell you that, so let's say the company sells it to someone who wants to operate a golf course. Fantastic. Game over. Everyone wins, right? We've talked with the HOA. We've given them a path to ensure, and this is the only path really to ensure that what happened to them doesn't happen to them again. And that path forward is for them to organize essentially a district, a taxing district, to purchase and own and control the golf course themselves. That is an option for the HOA, and really the only option, again, to make sure that it doesn't become something else. If someone else bought it, wanted to turn it into, let's say they wanted to put housing on the golf course, they would have to go through a very lengthy and very public process to change the zoning to do that. Year plus. It's not going to happen overnight. It's not going to happen quietly. It's going to be a very public, very open process. I think I have no further comment. Okay.
Maybe a question or two more. This is incredible access, so we should.
Thank you. Hi, Peter. Thanks for being here. My question is around the housing, but it's not directly around a city project. So bear with me. The permanent supported housing that was open and established over at Martha's Place. I'm curious because of the difference of that program compared to a lot of other dense opportunities for housing. I'm curious if the city's hearing any feedback from the community, if you're realizing positive impacts from those programs yet, and what that might look like in the future for Mount Vernon.
All right. So permanent supportive housing at Martha's Place on College Way. A newer facility in the last couple of years. It's operated by Catholic Community Services. Prior to citing the permanent supportive housing at that location, our city council at the time, county commissioners, went up to Bellingham, all jumped on a Skagit Transit bus, went up to Bellingham and looked at another permanent supportive housing operation that Catholic Community Service operates downtown Bellingham, right in the middle of the businesses, and there's a permanent supportive housing called Francis Place. Talked with the folks that run that operation. The chief of police for Bellingham was there and spoke with us and answered questions, and a number of other business owners who were there who were very wary of that type of housing facility being located that close to downtown, that close to businesses. Permanent supportive housing in Mount Vernon at Martha's Place is about 70 units for chronically homeless individuals. So these are folks that are going to be identified as not likely to progress through services to self-sufficiency, maybe. However, given the opportunity to have a stable place to live and have wraparound services at that location and case management, you dramatically increase the likelihood that they can get back on track. And so that's the model behind permanent supportive housing. In Mount Vernon, we had some of the same bumps along the road when it first opened, with management, expectations, all of those things. And really, when a facility like that is sited anywhere, that's what it comes down to, is case management and just facility management as well. I would say the impacts that I've been hearing at that location have been minimal. There have been a few, and I've heard some pretty incredible success stories come out of that operation. I know a lot of our integrated outreach service social workers who are embedded in our police department. There are 4 of them right now. Work closely with some of those folks and are helping them through that process. And Chief Kamek could tell you a couple of stories about how things have gone really well in some instances. So it's never an easy walk and everything's great, but everything's pretty good there. And again, I just think it comes down to how closely case management is working with the residents there.
We have time for just one more.
Okay.
Peter, thank you, and your team. It's great to see the changes that are being talked about regarding zoning and everything else. But zoning is just one part of the development process. Mount Vernon certainly is known, and you and I have talked about this before, as not being the friendliest place to do development. And so businesses are seeking other jurisdictions. What are you planning on doing in terms of fees and process to actually attract development?
Well, Jared, this is the first I'm hearing about this. I wish you would have scheduled a private meeting. Jared talked about one of the things that I learned as I was campaigning, had heard because I was working at the city, but learned as I was campaigning that there's some frustration and some perceived barriers beyond the code, the barriers that are in our code. And I will say that Stacy has been charged with a little bit of a culture shift. I will also say that we have some incredibly talented planners, engineers, and building officials in that department. Stacy has come in with her magic wand and unicorn tears and is day by day changing the culture of the department and really trying to focus more on a customer service orientation. So I've heard feedback already just in the last few months that is going well, that people are having better experiences. I love to hear that. You're talking about how Mount Vernon in general, how city council might say, we want more apartment buildings or we want more businesses to come in. What can the city do to attract that? And there again is a conundrum, a balancing act of, okay, we can waive all of our fees. All of our fees are waived and come on in and build where you want to build, do what you want to do. The problem with that is that a lot of the fees, all of the fees, our impact fees are tied to direct impacts of that construction. So a traffic impact, for instance, is charged to a developer because when you build 200 multifamily units, there are a lot of cars, right? There's going to be more cars on the road. There's going to be more traffic around that area. And so those impact fees are directly tied to those impacts. And so the question of, well, if we bring that in, the city benefits as a whole, the residents benefit because now we have a new business there, or now we have more housing there. And while that's true, those impacts are still there and they still need to be mitigated for. They still need to be paid for. So who's paying for them? Not the developer? Okay, who's paying for them? The answer is we are. Those of us who live there are subsidizing that. Maybe council says that's exactly what we need, and because we desperately need housing units and we desperately need businesses to come into Mount Vernon. I don't know. There's some balance there. And I know what has been the practice hasn't worked. And if it's more than a culture issue, if it's more than a code change issue, then we need to look at that and see what makes sense for the city, what makes sense for our residents. Just going to wrap it up. I will summarize that the state of the city, Mount Vernon is thriving. This slide shows just a few events. It shows the massive economic development project, the Library Commons project, shows the city's first Cinco de Mayo parade that happened a couple of weeks ago, which was awesome. Shows the 2024 Mount Vernon High School Bulldog team, who are in the top 4 right now in the state, playing for a state championship maybe this weekend. Go Bulldogs. Flora, your son's up there. Come on. But things really are good. We definitely have some challenges ahead of us, but we also have a city government that has made it our mission to listen to and to partner with the public. So we're hoping to lift this city up as an example of how we can create the attractive environment that we want Mount Vernon to be. So thank you for your time today. Thank you for committing along with all of us to making the city a better place. Great to be here.